support that will be offered in year 3. To continue to build off the investment of our website, DCI will develop up to 6 pieces of fresh content. This content will most likely support the Sugar Land success stories and highlight successful business activity in Sugar Land. DCI will work alongside the Sugar Land Office of Economic Development to support a robust social strategy across our social platforms. As we build off a tremendously successful year that we saw, our LinkedIn account nearly doubled its followers. We will continue to post content that resonates with current and new audiences. And we'll develop a social media strategy tailored for each social channel. Alongside social media, DCI will support the Office of Economic Development with outreach to community stakeholders. Now, let's take a look at a few new projects that we'll be focusing on in contract year 3. The Sugar Land Office of Economic Development will work with DCI to organize and execute an event to target consultants and key target industry focused individuals. To bolster our social media strategy, DCI will perform a social media audit and competitor analysis on all existing social media channels. We're talking about Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram for both the Office of Economic Development and Visit Sugar Land. And make recommendations on what channels are resonating with audiences and which ones aren't. And lastly, through cross-promotional digital advertising campaigns and tailored digital marketing assets, we will engage target audiences to generate leads and build Sugar Land's online presence. Now, let's review the budget terms and conditions. We are proposing a 12-month integrated marketing program for a total of $335,340. That includes similar services from year 2. Cost would be shared between the 4A and 4B, which is broken down into 4A paying $157,670 and 4B paying $177,670. We are requesting SL4B to pay an additional $20K to support marketing activations for Sugar Land's hospitality business community, like hotels and our destination venues. As you can see on the screen, the fees and expenses are broken down into professional services, which are paid monthly, and projected expenses, which are paid on an as-needed basis. Something to keep in mind is that contract year 3 is going to be $26,200 less than last year's contract, because we have continued to refine our scope of services for contract year 3. For your reference, this year we have expensed $268,790.94 in contract year 2, and we are expecting a cost savings of approximately $40,000. So the next steps, we had a joint SLB and SL4B workshop on August 2nd. SL4B, we're bringing this to you guys for contract consideration. So, questions, comments?
Suzanne?
Thank you. You know, the last time we spoke, and I think you're doing a great job, but just we asked for ROI on this and how you're gauging where we are, finding the return on investment. So how are you gauging that? Is there any way to look at that still, how we're finding?
What specifically?
So the investment is 335,340, correct?
Yes.
So how do we find what that investment brings? Are we doubling that, or how do we gauge how we are getting our money back?
Yes, so every month we get a monthly report from DCI. We look at the media coverage that we've gotten. For example, if you remember, we talked about the coverage that NPR did with us. So sorry, like thinking about this.
I have no doubt that we are. I was just
Right.
wondering how we are gauging it.
So we're just gauging it based on the earned media that we've gotten. We're gauging it on the social media engagement that we're getting as well. We're gauging it on the success stories that we've been developing with DCI. See what the traction looks on social media, what the traction looks on our website. And we're also looking at our paid digital strategy to see how those keywords are performing. So based on that, we allocate our budget spend. Oh, that's your
Yes,
question.
I was looking for something more concrete, like are we bringing, because of DCI, I know we had this hit, so is that just specific hit brand business here that's relocating here because of that particular hit on Facebook or whatever you're using? So we can actually say, oh, this business came here because DCI got them here. that kind of thing?
So I can tell you what we're getting is exposure. We're creating brand awareness. We have, I can't say right now that we've secured any business through our DCI contract, but we're working on that. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've heard Devin, Elizabeth talk about how we don't have any land to build on. So I can't really say that we're securing any business per se, but we're creating awareness of why Sugar Land is a strategic location for business investment, whether you're wanting to expand or our available office spaces that we have. So, but I can't, to be quite honest with you, I can't tell you we've been able to secure any business, but we have been able to build the credibility and build that awareness that everything that we're doing has been able to do for us.
Okay, and one follow-up?
To support, real quick, Melissa, like, I don't know that that's ever a realistic goal. Like, if someone calls and says, hey, I saw your ad in Texas Monthly, or I saw your digital ad on Facebook and I loved it and I want to move my business to Sugar Land, like, that would be amazing.
That would be.
But I don't think that that's not in our scope of work. That's not in our like expectations of results. It's more like when Melissa keeps talking about, we're taking control of our story, we're taking control of our messaging, and we're getting that brand awareness done. So like, we've got a strong scope of services that we continue to hold them accountable for, like our industry one pagers and other things like that. But some of like those types of results are dreams, and we hope become a reality, but I don't have ever any real expectation that is what will happen.
Okay.
I still want to see those one pagers.
They
haven't
should be
seen
on the
them.
website.
Are they on the website, the one pagers?
No, once they're ready, we're finalizing design, I can happily share those with you.
Okay, yeah, that's just one of the ones, because that I know we contracted them for, and
Right.
I think that's a concrete deliverable.
Right,
yes.
And I want to see it. But they also have ways, and hopefully not turn, if you see the increase in hits,
Mhm.
there is they somewhat quantifiable. And so it's not as clear cut as what I know exactly, because I'm the same way. I want to understand exactly how it is. But those are some
So it's hard to
ways.
price it
Right,
out.
correct.
Or ROI
Right.
specifically.
I mean, if
It's
you're
kind of
looking for like specific KPIs, one of the things that we look at is social media engagement, how many followers. I mean, if you remember, like when we first brought this contract, our LinkedIn or social media following was extremely low. And with all the campaigns, all the content that we're building out, we're seeing that KPI as far as like, we're getting more followers, we're getting a lot more engagement on social, right? And as far as the paid digital campaigns, so we're specifically building campaigns to target advanced manufacturing, that industry, or information technology or tourism, we're seeing that ROI when we're seeing the visitation on our website and how many people, how much people are spending on the website to learn about these industries that we have.
And I would assume that demographic is much broader than we could ever reach ourselves. Thank you.
I'm sorry there, you caught me off guard and I had to like really think on my feet and like how to answer this, so
You
hopefully
did
I was
well,
able
you're well,
to
thank you.
answer your questions.
Are there any other questions?
I'll ask a question. I think, Elizabeth, you know how I feel about this company, they're great. But the question is, if we were not to spend $340,000 and we add 2 headcount at $150,000, what's the difference? Is there a way that we can, and I'm not saying we're doing this, but if we didn't have BCI, what would we have? And if we don't have BCI and we had 2 headcount at $200,000, it's still a savings of $140,000 to the taxpayers, what would we see? If we have a deliverable of a 1-pager and it's the end of the year and it's not here yet, what have we been doing for 11 months with this company? So
So
it's a couple of different questions in there.
is that your example about the industry one pagers because you guys haven't seen them specifically? Or
That's part of it.
part of
That's
it?
the most minute portion of it. The bigger portion of my question is what if we hire 2 headcount and spend $175,000, $200,000? Would our engagement, because I keep hearing LinkedIn, our LinkedIn has doubled.
Mhm.
I don't know what that does for me. What does that mean, right? So my first question is, if we were not to have BCI, period, and we hire 2 additional headcount, would we be able to drive these same results by holding an employee accountable by his or her actions every day, 40 hours a week, to make sure he or she does that job for us?
Personally, I will try to answer this question. I may come back to you, Elizabeth, for support. So I have, before DCI came on board, I know you guys remember Teresa, it was really Teresa and I, and we had Mary, who's now our sales and advanced manager, who's been promoted to promoting Carlos Park and driving our special permitting process. So it was really just us doing all the marketing, and within the last 2 years, we were brought over to do business development. It's a lot of work for just the two of us. Now I just brought on the marketing coordinator. I'm not saying that we won't be able to reach the same goals, because I think we could, but it's a lot of work. Not that we don't
Sure.
have the qualifications or the background to be able to do it, but they're more dedicated on helping us pitch to media, being proactive. Like that's a full-time job itself. Like we don't have the capacity to do that. For example, driving our paid digital strategy, someone to completely be looking at the keywords, like, are people typing in electric companies in Sugar Land? Are people typing in advanced manufacturing in Sugar Land? That is another job in itself to search for those things. So me and my team, we can't dedicate 100% of that, because for that strategy, our integrated marketing strategy that we have for it to be successful, we wouldn't be able to do that because we have other things to worry about, if that makes sense. That's that. To answer your question about the industry one pagers, DCI has delivered. They've delivered everything. I have been working on with a graphic designer in-house to build those out. They're not wrapped up because we have a lot of other projects that we've been working on too, to kind of help echo all of this as far as like, if we didn't have DCI or if we hired 2 additional people, it's just a lot of work that, we have on our plates. I don't know, if you wanna.
Because it should be nothing of your work if you're hiring 2 or 3 other people, other than managing them and looking at it.
And that's what I do with
Mhm.
DCI. I
Yeah.
manage the contract.
Right.
We have bi-weekly meetings and we talk about strategies. We talk about, okay, what keywords are performing? What are we pitching? Or, when we have business development meetings with Alba at our publicity meetings. So this is probably something you guys don't know, but we have a publicity meeting every week where we talk about what are we doing in marketing? What do we need to share with the world of what's happening in the business development industry or what's happening in the tourism world? So when we meet during these meetings, Alba, for example, she comes in there and she has direct relationships with these CEOs, these businesses in Sugar Land. She's like, hey, this is a project that's happening. For example, the CBR announcement that you guys heard about. That's something that we pitched to DCI to pitch that to media. Now, I can't pitch that because that's not what I focus on completely. Now, communications, they focus more on targeting local audiences, but they don't target the industries that we want to know about what's happening, if that makes sense. So,
So I would just to add, like Melissa's done a great job of holding DCI accountable. And I think what you've seen over like with this 3rd-year contract is that we have defined the scope of services, like on one page, we talked about the graphic design. That's not something that we really loved, to be completely honest. And so we took the content, but they're really good at the content. So we took the content and now we're
fine tuning it.
Yes. But like, we can't replicate DCI's contacts with the PR, like the media, and we can't replicate their experience in the industry. They have very long tenure in economic development and tourism, and we can't replicate that. We could hire people, but we're never gonna have enough people that can solely focus on social media or solely focus on pitching to the media. And like she said, like the city's focused on more of the residents, the local. We're out there trying to get a national audience. Like I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. I have very high aspirations of where we want to get, but we've done well. Like when I started here, we weren't ever on the Business Journal, on the Houston Business Journal. We weren't ever on the Chronicle, or if it was like very little. And so we are getting our name out there even more. And I think that's the really hard part. That's hard. Like I guess we could email you a list of every media mention that we've been able to get through this contract, because they're out there pitching it. But it's not as concrete as the industry one majors. But
Right.
does that help?
Yeah, this any type of advertising or social media is never gonna be concrete, and I think we get that. It's just, I was just trying to think differently, that if I hire 2 industry experts and they're available, it costs 6 figures, but then this costs 300 and some odd thousand dollars, right? So, and that's the only reason, just if we can think differently as we move on to year 3, and how do we go into year 4, what is DCI gonna do differently if they wanna stay on board in year 4?
Yep. And I can just weigh in a little bit too, just in terms of economic development marketing. We tend to look at it as like top of the funnel, which is where we're creating kind of that awareness and brand awareness and groundwork to kind of start taking the customer down into the funnel, which, like bringing the site selectors in, doing one-on-ones with Devin and Alba as they are meeting, having relationships and having meetings where when they do have projects, they have that contact already within the city. I think the other thing is, because we've been working together for several years, we're very open and honest with each other. And so a lot of times, we're trying to provide Melissa and team with feedback based on what we're seeing competitors do. Often when we advance campaigns, we will look at a competitive set and look at where Sugarland fits within that competitive set, and then make recommendations that aren't always comfortable. That, Melissa and I've been on the phone when I've said, I don't like that on your website. Like, I don't. So I think that we've gotten to a point where we're trying to elevate the level of marketing from the entity to be at a level, that's globally competitive. Just as much as people think of Texas and Houston, they're putting Sugarland into that mix, given the amazing, assets that it offers. We're just trying to make sure that we're doing that, in a more sophisticated way year after year.
Kat, it just wouldn't be fair if I didn't ask a question. You've dealt with me for 3 years in a row.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. I like the questions, and honestly, I appreciate the back and forth. I mean, when we started this budget, this is probably like the 7th version of it. Melissa and Devin and I go back and forth before they meet with Elizabeth. So, there's been a lot of thought put into where we need to go. We've taken off certain things that aren't serving either of us well, or that we don't think we need anymore, and we're diverting those funds into things that we think are more effective.
I think it's also helpful to have a consultative resource. It's also helpful to have a consultative resource down the hall that you can go to. That does 2 things: helps you work towards getting answers, and the other is it makes you smarter as a staff, more experience. So you multiply the experience with a good consultative resource, and I think that alone justifies the hiring and the contract and the connection that we have with them. I'm guessing that in the last 2 to 3 years, our staff have gotten exposed to a lot broader group of skills as well as mindsets by being associated with this group and others like them. And so ROI is hard, because put a price on something and sure, I can price it out, but it's really intangible. It's an intangible benefit. And hiring 2 people, for example, is linear. You still got to train them, educate them, and then you still have to have that resource down the hall that I mentioned. So thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Director Kamali, motion to approve, Director Atkinson, second. Director Saunders? Aye. Director Gassetti?
Aye.
Director McCutcheon? Aye. Director Well?
Aye.
Aye.
And I approve as well, unanimously approved. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Kat.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're moving to the next item, consideration of an action on amending the fiscal year 2022 budget projections, adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget, and a recommendation of the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget to the members of City Council. Scott.
Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Maybe. Okay. So today I have the FY 22 budget to amended projections as well as the FY 23 proposed budget. You'll recall that we met previously with the budget committee back on June 30th, and then we reviewed this budget with the full board on July 20th. From a summary perspective, this is what the FY 22 budget based on projections. We talked about the additional revenue based on the performance of sales tax. And then the only expenditure reduction was based on the First Colony Lifestyle Center not meeting their threshold for their incentive. So that's a reduction there. So it's an additional $1.2 million to the ending fund balance. Just for informational purposes, from a policy standpoint, we try to have the ending fund balance at 15% of the budgeted sales tax revenue. So you can see where that policy requirement has us compared to the ending fund balance. And then we also try to cover our debt service from a bond coverage ratio of 1.25 times. And we are roughly 4.8 times that coverage right now. That's the FY 22 summary. For FY 23, we continue to look at revenues from a conservative standpoint. We do have the revenue included from the IRD payment that is anticipated based on the assessed valuation for that district going above the $400 million threshold. So this is the payment of $7.82 million for the city's contribution to the improvements at Constellation Field. Then we also have $3 million budgeted for reserve for opportunities. And then I'll talk about capital projects, which are included in there. And then, as I mentioned before, we are meeting and exceeding our policy requirements for coverage. These are the projects. The first one is, the first three are standard projects that 4B has contributed to over the lifetime. The first one, just as a note, going forward, we're going to move that to a separate fund. So you won't see it on this list anymore because the projects that are in public arts vary from year to year. And sometimes that fund balance can grow over time. So moving it will allow us to track that more accurately. And then the last two projects, the skate park relocation and then the pickleball courts at City Park, we talked about that. And then there is a placeholder for the office, the economic development office relocation, depending on what the ultimate outcome is of their office needs. That funding set aside for that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So will the public arts project still be funded by 4B? It'll just be set up completely separate?
Yes,
Yeah, we all have the same question.
yes, that funding will still be there, but we've isolated it to its own fund so that we can track it more accurately because the expenditures can vary year over year. So, any other questions about that?
When do we have any timelines on any of those?
As far as the individual projects,
Yes,
I'd have to let someone else.
specifically the pickleball court.
I know last time I spoke to Joe, they got bids back and they were really high. And so they were kind of reevaluating what they could do themselves or how they could refine the scope of work between the skate park and the pickleball courts. And we are anticipating bringing the funding resolution to the 4B in October. So you'll get a lot more information then. But as far as we're concerned, the money's there as of October 1, we get the funding funding resolution done. And then they can start. It's a matter of if they can get the bids and if they can make it make sense now.
It's ready.
So.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so recommendation is to approve the FY 22 budget amendment projections and then approve the FY 23 budget and recommending it to the city council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So Director Watley, motion to approve, Director Saunders, second, Director Kamali.
Aye.
Director Gasani.
Aye.
Director McKenzie.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
Director Saunders.
Aye.
And I also approve. It carries unanimously. Thank you, Scott.
And Madam Chair, I'm just going to confirm with the attorneys that meets the need, that we don't have to do two separate. Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So, we've got quick updates for you. So DCI continues to optimize our Google ads and our campaigns. And we are seeing those results through targeting phone calls, email clicks, people are signing up for our newsletter. And we see a lot more heavy engagement with our website, which is exactly what we want to see. We want to pay for exposure. We want to see people coming to our website. The other thing is our organic searches are reporting strong results. So we are seeing an increase in conversions month over month, and our website is also increasing. So, and then we've got DCI delivered the final SEO optimized Sugar Land success story for FY 22, which was a feature on Pink Zebra as an example of a small family-owned business in the community. It focuses on their decision to move their headquarters here to Sugar Land, and really good articles. You should go to our website and read it if you haven't already. And then one last thing too, I wanted to note, John passed out the joint CIP program. Please help us spread the word that, as you saw, we all approved the budget. We've got $200,000 reserved for FY 23, and applications are gonna open on October 1st and close on November 1st. So they've got John and the team, he's in a new role now, and he's taking over the joint CIP program, and he is got some really cool kind of new ideas of how to get out there in the community and get some engagement and really help answer people's questions and hopefully get a lot more applications. So if you have any questions about that, just send people our way. John will be your contact. That's all I have. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned.
Carol's job.
Thank you.
3 times you missed out one. Missed one already.
When?
The motion is adjourned.